In 2012, a video tore through the internet. A golden eagle diving into a city park, snatching a toddler in its talons, then dropping him seconds later. People gasped, people shared it. Then, people looked closer. The shadow moved too smoothly. The bird's wing didn't flex the way a real wing does under that kind of load. Within days, it was confirmed. Computer animation, built by 3 students as a class project. The eagle was fake. The baby was fake. The panic, briefly, was real. That story tells you nothing about giant eagles. It tells you everything about how easily we believe a bird could take one of us. And buried in a limestone quarry nearly a century earlier, something suggested that belief might be older and stranger than any viral video. This isn't a story that starts with pixels. It starts with a skull pulled out of rock in South Africa in 1924 and the marks on it that nobody could explain for 70 years. The skull belonged to a child, roughly 3 years old, a species called Australopithecus africanus, dead roughly 2.6 million years ago. 3 years old. Old enough to walk, too young to understand what was above it. Workers at a limestone quarry near the town of Taung found it by accident. The anatomist Raymond Dart, who first described it in 1925, called it strong evidence that humans evolved in Africa, and he was right. What he missed were 2 punctures at the base of the eye sockets and fine scratches radiating outward, the kind of damage a falling rock doesn't make. Decades later, researchers Lee Berger and Ron Clark compared that damage to the modern kill sites and found something uncomfortably close. A pattern remarkably similar to the damage modern crowned eagles leave on monkey skulls when they grip the head and begin to feed. Not every expert agrees this settles the case, and no feather was fossilized beside the bone to confirm it. But the pattern is difficult to explain as ordinary postmortem damage. A 3-year-old's skull, sitting in a museum drawer for most of a century, may be the oldest crime scene photograph on Earth. That comparison only works because somewhere a modern eagle was leaving behind the same kind of evidence, and someone was watching. In the rainforest canopy of Tai National Park in Ivory Coast, the ecologist Scott McGraw spent years climbing to crowned eagle nests and sorting through the debris underneath them. What he found were skulls, colobus monkeys mostly, some of them carrying puncture wounds that lined up almost exactly with the marks on the Taung Child. Across much of Africa's forests, crowned eagles are major predators of primates. The comparison isn't perfect. Ivory Coast is thousands of kilometers from the Taung quarry, and millions of years separate the two. But it gave researchers something they rarely get, a living comparison running in real time. Science almost never gets to run the same experiment twice, once in the fossil record and once in the present. Here the past left fingerprints, and the present still makes them. None of this works, though, without understanding what a talon is actually built to do. An eagle doesn't kill with muscle. It kills with geometry. A raptor, meaning any bird of prey built for hunting rather than scavenging, drives 4 curved talons into a single, narrow point of contact, then locks its tendons so the grip holds without the bird spending extra energy to maintain it. That design lets birds far smaller than their prey bring down animals 2 or 3 times their own weight. Martial eagles have been documented killing small antelope. Harpy eagles in South America regularly take sloths and monkeys heavier than themselves. The strategy is never a fair fight. It's a strike from above, out of the sun, before the target even registers a threat exists. Speed and surprise do the work raw strength can't. A hawk doesn't need to be strong, it only needs to be first. And that matters because the animal on the other end of those talons wasn't always a monkey. In at least one case, it may have been one of our own relatives. Which raises an obvious question. How small does something have to be before it fits inside that killing window? Crowned eagles routinely take prey in the 5 to 20 kilogram range, occasionally more. A 3-year-old Australopithecus child, based on comparisons to similarly aged juveniles in the fossil record, likely weighed somewhere close to the middle of that bracket. Nobody can put an exact number on it. Growth rates in extinct hominins are still debated. But rough as the estimate is, it lands the child squarely inside the size class an eagle already hunts today, without needing any special theory to explain it. Evolution doesn't care about species labels. A predator's prey list is really just a weight class with feathers attached. If you fit the bracket, you're on the menu, whether you walk upright or swing through branches. This wasn't only happening in Africa. Half a world away, an entirely different eagle was running the same experiment at an even larger scale. When the first humans reached New Zealand, they weren't the only newcomers to the islands. On the South Island, the largest eagle known to science already ruled the forest canopy. Haast's eagle, females reaching an estimated 10 to 15 kilograms with a wingspan pushing 3 meters, hunted moa, flightless birds that could weigh well over 100 kilograms, more than 10 times the eagle's own weight. Researchers studying its skeleton describe a predator built less like a typical eagle and more like a flying big cat, with a skull and talons reinforced to survive striking something enormous at speed. Maori oral tradition remembers a giant bird called pauakai, said to prey on people, and the timeline lines up uncomfortably well. Haast's eagle didn't vanish until roughly the 1400s, a century or two after humans first settled the island. No fossil has ever been found with a person's bones locked in an eagle's talons. The story is intriguing, but folklore can preserve memories, reshape them, or simply create monsters. It isn't evidence that the eagle actually hunted people. Still, a bird with a 3-meter wingspan and talons built for moa shared the island with families and children for generations. The sky itself was different then. Madagascar tells a similar story, with a different cast. An extinct species called the Malagasy-crowned hawk eagle once hunted across the island, and the bones it left behind carry the same kind of talon damage found on giant lemurs, some of which weighed close to 20 kilograms. Early human settlers arrived roughly 2,000 years ago and lived alongside this eagle for centuries before it disappeared. No confirmed human remains have turned up with matching wounds, so this stays in the category of educated guesswork rather than proof. Yet the pattern keeps repeating. A large raptor, oversized prey, and small upright walking primates sharing the same ground. Opportunity doesn't require a habit. It only requires the right size and the right sky. Here's the part any honest version of this story has to include. Not everyone is convinced. Some researchers have proposed the Taung Child's wounds came from a leopard, or from scavengers working over a body after death rather than a hunting kill at all. That argument hasn't disappeared, and it shouldn't. A pattern match to modern eagle kills is strong circumstantial evidence. Nobody has a photograph, a fossilized feather beside the body, or a hominin skeleton found crushed mid-flight in an eagle's grip. What exists is a wound pattern, a living analog that reproduces it, and a plausible predator with the right size and the right range. That's enough to build a serious hypothesis. It isn't enough to close the file. Every cold case rests on a pattern, not a confession, and this one is no different. Whether or not the killing happened exactly this way, the fear it would have produced almost certainly reshaped something deeper. Researchers studying early hominin behavior, including the anthropologists Donna Hart and Robert Sussman, have argued that our ancestors spent most of their evolutionary history as prey rather than predators, hunted from the ground by cats and hyenas and, quite possibly, from above by birds exactly like these. That kind of sustained pressure doesn't just kill individuals, it selects for behavior, staying in groups, sleeping in trees or on cliffs, watching the sky as automatically as watching the ground. How much of that specifically comes from aerial predators as opposed to ground predators is still argued over, and probably always will be. But the reflex outlived the threat. Stand in an open field today and let something pass low overhead without warning. A drone, a low-flying bird, a shadow moving wrong, and notice the flinch arrive before the thought does. That isn't nervousness. That's software installed millions of years ago, still running, with nothing left to protect you from. Put the pieces next to each other, and they stop looking like separate stories. A fossil skull carries wound marks that match a killing method. A living population of the same kind of eagle, filmed and studied in real time, produces identical wounds today. The physics of a talon strike explain why a bird a fraction of a human's size could still do the damage. And on 2 other land masses with 2 completely different eagles, the same size window kept showing up next to the same vulnerable prey. Fossil evidence, living evidence, mechanical evidence, geographic parallels. None of it closes the case. Together, it makes the case impossible to ignore. The video from 2012 needed a visual effects team, motion tracking software, and 3 film students to convince the world that an eagle could take a child. 2.6 million years ago, nothing needed convincing. No camera recorded it, No algorithm rendered it, and no headline announced it. There was only a shadow crossing open ground, wings wide enough to block the sun for a moment, and then a very small skull that would wait in the dirt until someone finally learned how to read the marks left on it.